You're listening to Garibaldi Red, a Nottingham Forest podcast brought to you by Nottinghamshire Live.
Hello and welcome to the Nottingham Forest Facebook page and the Derby County Live Facebook page. We're multi-streamed on both platforms this morning. My name is Dan Rowlandson. I'm joined by Sarah Clapson. Sarah, how are you this morning?
Good. Good morning, Dan.
And Steve Nicholson as well. Steve, how are you?
Good, yes. The sun's out and I'm still here.
It's always something.
It's a nice cheery start to the stream. I've brewed myself a cup of coffee. It's an early one this morning. We don't usually do these so early, do we? 10 o'clock on a Thursday morning.
Two sugars will do, Dan, please.
2 sugars. Yeah. I've tried to cut the sugar out, trying to be healthy, Steve. Obviously, we're here for one reason. The reason we've got you both here is it's obviously a big derby game coming up on Friday night. We'll start with you first, Sarah, as the home side. How are you feeling about this one generally going into it?
Yeah, I think Forest will probably be a bit more positive than they might have been maybe even a few weeks ago. I think because of the results they've had. Obviously, they've had a win now and a draw under Chris Hughton. And it's amazing what a difference that can make, just getting some results under your belt and just lifting the mood a little bit and feeling a bit more positive. And I mean, nobody's going to be overconfident, but feeling a bit more optimistic about it perhaps than a few weeks ago when they were on that losing run and you were kind of thinking, where's the next result going to come from? Now they've got that under their belt and they've kind of established themselves a little bit under Hughton. They can go into it feeling a little more upbeat, I think.
Yeah, it's a strange one, isn't it? Because I spoke to Matt Davis after the Blackburn win, and it's weird when you're in a bad run of form, you look at your fixtures and go, oh God, where are these points coming from? And then you win one game and you start looking at fixtures going, oh, you know what, I quite fancy us there. If football's weird.
Exactly. Yeah, exactly. I mean, they probably should have won really on Tuesday night. They had so many chances. If they'd have got that, they would have been in even more of an upbeat mood. But I think you have to take positives from the draw against Rotherham and against the win at Blackburn, just to lift the mood, and everybody kind of it lightens things a little bit. When you're on that losing run, you're kind of, there's not a fear factor, but there's kind of a little bit of tension building, and now they've got those results, it just eases it a little bit. Obviously, new managers come in, players eager to impress. It just makes it. It just helps, I think, going into a big game like that when you've already got results under your belt.
There's plenty of people watching this morning. We are live on the Facebook pages for Nottingham and Derby. I can't tell whether the comments are Nottingham Forest fans or Derby, so if you've got a question for Steve, say, hi Steve, or a question for Sarah, hi Sarah, that'll make it much easier for my job. Steve, we'll go to you next. How are you feeling about this game? Obviously, both sides have had a poor start, haven't they, really?
Yeah, but I mean, both sides are struggling for wins and points. It's still very, very early. I know, we're always looking at the next game and the next result, but it is 6 games into 46 matches, and we know how quickly things can change and how a couple of positive results can change the feeling around the place. Derby need a positive result. I don't think there's any escaping from that. You know, they've only won one of the 5 league games this season, and that was a somewhat fortunate win at Norwich when, if you remember, Timo Pukki kind of slipped over as he was going to take a penalty at 0-0, and then Wayne Rooney scored a free kick to give Derby the win. But they could do with a lift, there's no doubt. You know, Philip Cocu, the players, they could do with a lift, and there's no better lift than going to your neighbour's backyard and hopefully getting a win.
Well, I guess I've prepared a little bit of questions. I suppose both sets of questions can apply to both sides, really, that both sides are struggling for goals, both sides are struggling for confidence. One side has opted to go for a new manager, one side has opted to stick with their manager. What do we think is going to happen in terms of, not looking ahead to the rest of the season, but is a change of manager, Sarah, something that can give you a lift? So far, so good, isn't it?
Yeah, I think so. It's amazing what difference it makes, really. Just to kind of freshen things up and just as a change. I think Cyril Mucci last season, he did really well. That Forest, I know it didn't end how they wanted, but for the most part of the season, there was so much positivity about the club, and they really looked like they were going to challenge and be in that top 6. Obviously, that didn't pan out, and then it just continued into this season. And when you're kind of in that rut, it's difficult to get out of it. And obviously the way they opted to do so was to change the manager. Chris Hughton's a pretty safe pair of hands, I think. He's obviously got experience. He knows how to get out of this division. He knows English football. He knows the majority of the players at Forest, albeit he probably hasn't worked with most of them, but he'll know them from, their experience in English football. And he comes in and it just gets the players wanting to impress again, gets them wanting to get going. They set up in pretty similar way really to what they did under Lamuccia, kind of 4-2-3-1. They haven't kind of changed their play too much, but you've got somebody different on the touchline giving different instructions, trying to get the best out of players again. They have looked a bit better, I think. There's massive room for improvement still. That I'm not saying they've made huge strides already, but they are heading in the right direction. And I think that's what they needed. They needed something to get them going again. And Hughton can do that. He's a good manager. He's a good guy. The players seem to have taken to him quite quickly. He's not had that much time. But I think having that international break, those 2 weeks just to work with him on the training ground, has undoubtedly helped a little bit.
How about you then, Steve? Obviously 5 losses out of 6 in the league. How do you get out of that rut if you haven't changed the manager yet? Is there any chance of that? Is he under pressure?
Well, first of all, what I'll say is Forest have made an excellent appointment in Chris Hughton. I don't think there's any doubt about that. I've sat in press conferences with him when Derby played Brighton many times and asked him a number of questions, and he always comes across to me as someone who knows exactly what he's doing, exactly what he wants to do. So I think they've made an excellent appointment. For Derby, Philip Cocu, listen, results will dictate the future of any manager. You have to win enough games to keep the pressure off your shoulders. He hasn't done that this season. He didn't do that at the back end of last season. In total, the last 12 league games stretching the back end of last season to now, he's only won 2. What I will say, and I wrote a piece yesterday about it, I still just think it's too early, because he's had so much to deal with, Philip Cocu, during his time here off the pitch. So many curveballs. The most recent one being, with being without the skipper Wayne Rooney for Tuesday night's game at Huddersfield. It's been difficult for him, and we can talk about injuries, and everyone will scream at me and say, "Listen, everyone has injuries." But Derby have had injuries to a number of key players this season, and especially in the striking department, and that's hit them hard. So I think talk of changing manager is far, far too soon. I understand the frustration of the fans and the disappointment at the results. That's obvious. But Mel Morris yesterday, the chairman, I spoke to him yesterday, and he's absolutely right. He's not giving Cocu the dreaded vote of confidence. It's more than that. It's an understanding of where we're at the moment with this Derby team and where they're trying to get to. And I said before, I don't really look at the situation and the table too closely until there's 12 to 15 games, which is around a third of the season. Fans will say, well, it could be too late by then. It's never too late by then. Nothing's decided by then. Plenty of time after that still. Listen, let's just let him get on with the job and let's focus on Friday and not the manager's situation.
I probably shouldn't pledge my allegiances too far, but as a Villa fan, sorry everybody, we were nowhere in February in the year that we went up. We looked like mid-table, and another season in the Championship, here we go. And then all of a sudden you throw everyone wins together, and then you're the one in the Premier League, and now had a good start again. So it's never too late.
I remember that, Dan, because I think was it March the 1st, they beat Derby 4-0 at Villa Park.
Yeah. Yes.
And from nowhere, because they were really struggling, and they were 4-0 up at half time. They could have won 8 that day, and I think from that moment, did they win 10 on the spin or something like that?
Yeah, record.
I've seen it before with Derby. I mean, Billy Davis. There's the last time we won promotion, 2006-07. We were bottom of the table or second bottom after 5 or 6 games. And we went up. So you can. It changes too quickly. We said earlier, 2 wins and it changes, 2 defeats and it changes. And I think that's the way you've got to look at it. Certainly after only 6 games.
Well, we do these live to get fans' questions coming in, and there's a lot coming in, so we'll start weaving some of those in, keeping on the theme of Cocker, and something you've just touched on from Brian. How many more defeats can he last?
Well, as I said, results will dictate managers' futures. Doesn't matter whether you're Philip Cocker or Chris Hughton or whoever it is. That's natural. That's just the way the game is. How many more defeats? Impossible to tell. I don't know. All I can say is that having spoken to the club and having spoken to the chairman yesterday, he put forward to me a number of reasons why they think results aren't going well, and a number of hopeful pointers why they think results can turn around. And that's what they're working on. And the thing with football is it can drain your energy if you're not careful. Negatives can drain your energy, and it takes an awful lot of energy and focus to win a football match. And at the moment, that's all they should be concentrating on. Let's worry about managers' futures and that when it happens, or if it happens. As I say, we could all be feeling very much different on Friday night if the result's right.
What about you, Sarah, in terms of Chris Hughton's start so far? It's only been a couple of games, but are there signs there that was the right decision to make the change of manager when you did?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, like we said before, he's a really experienced manager. He knows what he's doing. He comes across very well. He speaks very well. The players clearly think very highly of him. That's not to say that they didn't under Lamouchi. I think a lot of them still liked Lamouchi. He was very well thought of. It's just that results weren't going his way. And that's ultimately, he paid the price for that. But yeah, I think they are making... There are positive signs under Chris Hughton, I think. Well, so it's only been 2 games, and they haven't played to their potential yet. I don't think they're still kind of getting to grips a little bit. I think the fact they made all those signings in the summer, there's still a lot of those players that are trying to gel. They're still trying to find their way as a team, but they have looked decent. They created a lot of chances on Tuesday night. Lewis Grabban, he's missed some really good opportunities so far this season. He's getting a heck of a lot of stick. I think people have quickly forgotten that he scored 20 goals last season. He was the first Forest player to do that in years. He's a good striker. He just needs a goal. He needs to get going again. And when he does, I'm sure he'll go on to get a hatful. It's just he needs one to go in, whether it's a scrappy goal, and then he'll be up and running again. But the creating chances, that's the main thing. And they've looked pretty decent, Forest, I think, in the last 2 games. Even in the final one of Sabrina Lamouchi's reign against Bristol City, they looked all right then. Still massive room for improvement, still a long way to go. But I think there are signs there that they are building, or they're trying to build something.
I bet you wouldn't mind a Lewis Grabban up front, would you, Steve?
Well, I mean, I remember the game last season when Forest won 1-0. It was a mistake at the back by Derby, but he finished it, I think, expertly, because you don't want chances falling to Lewis Grabban. I mean, it's interesting that at Derby we've had our own problems with strikers, and Martin Waghorn has been out all season. He returned us off the bench at Huddersfield for his first taste of action. I think sometimes we forget the influence and the importance of players. And Martin Waghorn was joint top scorer last season, and he never fails to put in a shift for Derby, and they've missed him. And like Forest, they'll be missing Grabban's goals. But usually what happens with strikers, once Sarah's quite right, once they get one, it happens. All strikers, I mean, I've never known a striker not have a barren patch, to be honest.
Well, let's raise a point from Dean, who says last season's history now, if you don't score goals, you don't win matches. Grabban needs a break. Missed so many chances my 9-year-old daughter would score. What can you do? Can you switch it up and put Taylor in there? Can you play 2 up front, or do you just have to wait it out and hope one bounces in off his backside and then he gets a bit of confidence?
Well, it's interesting what he does, really. I think there probably is a case to bring Lyle Taylor in, because he has done well when he's come on. I mean, you could play both of them, try and change the system a little bit. I think if you drop Grabban, though, you're not going to help his confidence. You need to let him keep playing, let him kind of he's getting in the right places, get these chances, hopefully one goes in, and then he'll be up and running again. He has missed some really golden opportunities. I don't think you could argue against that. But he contributes to the team in other ways. He set up the goal on Tuesday night. He works hard. He does put a shift in. I'm not saying Lyle Taylor doesn't either, but I think if you drop Grabban now, that's harsh on him. He needs to keep playing. He needs to kind of get that out of his system. Whether Hughton mixes it up, as I say, and goes both of them together, perhaps on Friday, goes a bit more attacking. I think that's definitely an option. Lyle Taylor has looked good. He's looked decent when he's come on. I mean, there was talk that early on he was kind of struggling for fitness a little bit because he'd not played at the back end of last season. Obviously, he seems to have built up that now. So I think he's definitely pushing Grabban, and that can only help. I mean, last season Grabban was Forest's only option, really. He was it. He was having to play every single game, whereas now he's got players breathing down his neck, and hopefully that helps him as well.
There's a question for you here, Steve, about Ibe. How far off is he from being involved with the first team? He also says, I give Cocker time. He's had some massive bad luck, which we were talking about off air, weren't we, before we started?
Yeah, well, the question actually might save me writing a story when I come off this Facebook. He's due to play in the under-23 game tomorrow afternoon against Southampton. Him and Christian Bielik are due to play in that. So that's a boost for Derby. We've had to be patient because we haven't seen Jordan Ibe yet, but that's understandable. He hasn't played a first-team game for more than a year now. His last game was for Bournemouth. So he's had to come in, step up his fitness, step up his sharpness. You know, some fans might say, well, just put him in. The thing is, with players like Jordan Ibe, who are what we call explosive players, they rely on that sudden burst of pace. You have to be very careful because the last thing you want is for him to suffer a muscle injury, whether that's hamstring or calf or whatever it is. So you've got to be careful. You've got to ease them back. But fingers crossed, he plays in the under-23s tomorrow, and that, as I say, will be an important step for him and hopefully for Derby moving forward.
We've got almost 20 minutes into this chat without mentioning Wayne Rooney. What's the latest there, Steve, in terms of his not a coronavirus test, but he's been involved in it. He's not come back positive, but he's missing games, and that will be a big loss for Derby, won't it? It
is a loss, and I mentioned earlier that these curveballs that keep coming Philip Cocker's way, and that was another one. So unfortunate, really. But he's having to self-isolate Wayne Rooney, so he missed the game at Huddersfield, and he'll also miss the game against Forest and against Cardiff. It's a huge blow, Wayne Rooney's not been in the best of form this season. I think that's clear. He wasn't really at the back end of last season. He had a niggling back problem during pre-season that hasn't helped him, but in the games against Norwich and Watford, there were signs that he was starting to get back up to speed. And if you add that, of course, to his obvious quality, which shines, certainly at this level, it shines. Missing him is a huge miss. But not only that, not only his ability to step up as he did at Norwich and curve a free kick in for the winner, he's capable of doing that at any moment. But it's his influence on the team. It's his influence on the younger players around him, which has been significant. So, yeah, it's a tough one for Wayne Rooney to take that, and it's also a tough one for Philip Cocker.
Boost for Forest, though, isn't it, Sarah?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, he perhaps it's his presence, isn't it, as much as anything. If you hear that Wayne Rooney's not in the side, then that's bound to give you a lift. I think Forest, they just have to concentrate on their own game. I think going into Friday night, they just have to try and play the way that Hughton wants them to play. Not worry too much about Derby, because Forest have got a lot of quality in that side. If they can play like we know they can, and if they can get the best out of players like Freeman, if Lolly's on form, Amiobi, if Arter comes in, if Knockaert plays, that's a really good lineup. If they can get them playing well and create chances, Forest have got every opportunity to get something from that game and hopefully get the 3 points, and hopefully keep it solid at the back as well. I mean, remember the game after lockdown at Pride Park, it was that slip, and I don't want to put it on Joe Worrell and dwell on it too much, but it ultimately in the context of Forest season, that proved really costly. I think after that they struggled to get going again. For whatever reason, it really affected them. They just need to cut out mistakes like that. I mean, it's difficult. It happens in every game. It happens for every side. But if Forest can keep calm and keep composed and play like they know they can, then I think they'll be pretty positive.
Well, what's interesting there, Dan, is Sarah's answer to that is, doesn't that just highlight the fine lines that we talk about in matches? You know, Forest were the better side that day. They should have won the game. They should have seen the game out. And I believe, and we don't know, of course, but I believe they'd have been in the playoffs had they hung on and won that game, which they should have done. And already this season we've seen fine lines. I mean, Derby, as I say, are struggling for wins, but there's been fine lines in every single game. You know, you play Watford at home, there's nothing in the game. It's 0-0. It looks like it's heading for a goalless draw, and suddenly, you know, Watford score a worldy goal out of nothing. And this is what happens. Norwich will be complaining the same in the game against Derby. It's say 0-0, 87 minutes gone. Derby win a free kick. There's only one man on the pitch who's going to put it in the net from where it was, and that was Wayne Rooney, and he was there to do it. So massive fine lines, huge fine lines. What is interesting, and we just mentioned Anthony Knockaert there, of course. He's a player who's given Derby problems in the past, playing for Brighton, and he's not a player I particularly want to see in the Forest team. So if you could have a word with Mr. Hughton.
It's funny what I was going to say about Sarah's answers. I asked her about Wayne Rooney, and she was like, "Oh well, we have to focus on ourselves." Like a good manager there. It's interesting that you mentioned Knockaert as well. There was a comment that came in earlier that said, "If there's anyone that hates Derby, that it's Anthony Knockaert." And I was thinking, well, I don't know what the story is there. Why?
Yeah, well,
he's
just given Derby. I mean, Derby and Brighton have had a number of meetings, obviously, and he's always just given them problems. I think on his game, he gives anyone problems. That's the way he is. He's a very tricky customer. And you know, I just think, you know, I'd prefer to see him on the bench or wherever if that's possible.
Oh, he's a solid addition, isn't he, Sarah? Is there any chance he comes in and starts on Friday?
Yeah, I think he will. I think he's not been involved the last two games, and I think Hughton's probably been keeping him ready for Friday. Whether he starts, whether he's on the bench, I'm pretty certain he'll be involved in some capacity. I think Hughton will probably mix it up a little bit from Tuesday night, because you're starting to come into this run now where the games are coming thick and fast and you need your squad. And he kept the same 11 on Tuesday as played on Saturday, but I think we'll see some changes tomorrow. I wouldn't be surprised if Harriata starts. I think Knockaert will probably come in, just give players a rest. Maybe he does drop Grabban and bring in Lyle Taylor, or brings him in as well, as just to mix it up a little bit and keep things fresh, just to try and keep players on their toes and try and get the result that he wants.
Yeah, there's a comment here from John Bory who says Knockaert, Grabban, Taylor and Arter to start. What's not to like? It's a good squad.
No, exactly.
On paper.
Yeah. On paper, Forest have got a really strong squad, and the problem is that you don't win anything on paper. They have to put the results and the performances in. I mean, they have made a lot of signings. I mean, they're still waiting on Kamil Grzycki to find out whether he's going to become their 15th summer signing, which is a heck of a lot of new players to come in. But the majority of the ones that they brought in are quality players. I think you look at the squad now compared to last season, and you've got to say it's better, it's stronger. They've got that strength in depth now. They can name a strong starting 11, which they could do last season, but they can also name a strong bench and bring on players who can make a difference. And that's something that they struggled with last year, and it proved costly. That they needed players that could come on and change games last season, and they didn't have that to the same extent as they have this year. And that's a massive, massive bonus for Hughton. It gives him different options. He can look to his bench and think, well, I can bring on a Knockaert, or I can bring on a Lyle Taylor, and hope that they create, or Alex Mighton even, hope that they create something and cause the opposition problems, and just give them something to think about, and hopefully create a goal if they need one.
On the flip side to that, there's a comment here from Anthony, a Derby fan, who says the team doesn't revolve around Rooney. We have a good bunch of lads. It's just the style Cocu wants them to play isn't working. He needs a plan A, B, C, D, E, F and G. Is that something you agree with, Steve? Do we need more options?
It's a lot of options, that is, isn't it?
A and B would be good, wouldn't it?
Yeah, indeed. Listen, all managers need A, B, C options. I think in this division, Sarah's just mentioned how games come thick and fast. You have different challenges. You have different personnel in your team. So you do need different options. You need different formations that not only you can start with, but you can switch to during games. Rooney's influence, as I said before, he's not been in the best of form. I think that's why he's receiving some criticism from some fans. But believe you me, his influence is massive, and I think they missed his quality at Huddersfield on Tuesday night. I think Philip Cocu, having spoken to him, or when I speak to him, he has different options. You know, we've seen it already. He's kind of had a 4-2-3-1. He's had a 4-3-3. At the moment, we're seeing 3 centre backs and wing backs. So there are different options there. I think at the moment, because results aren't what we want, I think it's easy to point the finger at formations and the way Philip Cocu wants them to play. But you know, I think with Philip Cocu, it's interesting because he's as passionate as any manager. He just shows that in different ways, and his style of football is different. That's what you get with different managers. And there are times when it works, and then unfortunately at the moment this season it hasn't worked enough. But he's got to find that right balance. I think defensively they're looking stronger. You know, they've only conceded 2 goals in the last 3 games, when I think they conceded 8 in the 3 league games before that. So there's been an improvement there. Obviously, they're very short goals. Two goals in 6 league games is wretched, really. I think there's only Wycombe in the 4 divisions who've scored fewer goals. So that's got to change very, very quickly, and that's what Derby need to concentrate on.
This is the second Derby game now without fans there, so you've experienced it once before. How much of an impact do you think that will have on the game?
I think it has a big impact. I mean, those games when it's full house, either at Pride Park or the City Ground, the atmosphere is incredible. It's just amazing. And to not have that, there's still big games, and obviously the players are still, you know, right up for them, but you haven't got either the opposition or the home fans helping you or on your back, and it makes such a difference. I mean, not just in Derby games, but every game really.
Yeah.
I think Forest, perhaps more than other teams, struggled with that towards the end of last season. I think had they had fans in a lot of those games, I'm convinced that they would have finished in the top 6. I think they would have got over the line. There's so many games where you thought they would have seen it out, or they would have picked themselves up and got going and got something from it. And I think the fact they didn't have that, I think it just held them back a little bit. I mean, they've got to get used to it. It's the same for every team, obviously. But games like this, you need that atmosphere. You need that kind of electricity, and it's a huge loss not to have the fans in.
Agreed.
Yeah, I mean, I would agree with all that. I mean, it does make a big difference. I don't know what the stats are, but to me, I think it certainly benefits the away team more than the home team, because it's just quite obvious, isn't it? I think the away team can relax more and play their game, and we certainly noticed that at the games at Pride Park. You know, when there's normally 28,000 there, if there's nobody there, then the away team can come and say play and try and enjoy themselves. I think for this fixture particularly, it makes a huge difference. There's no doubt that the nerves and the tension that would have been there normally among the players as they line up and wait to come out, even coming out the same tunnel, you know, next to each other, that tension, that electric kind of atmosphere and feeling of thinking, I've got to get one over my opponent today. Even that is missing because they enter the pitch from different parts of the ground. And then, of course, you walk out and you have that noise that we see at the City Ground and, of course, at Pride Park as well. It's bound to have an effect. And it's unfortunately, there's not much we can do about it at the moment.
Well, before we put our necks on the line and finish with predictions that will make us look stupid, I wanted to ask you both how you assess. Yeah, I mean, what's new? I wanted to ask you how you assess the opposition side as a Derby reporter, Steve. How do you look at Nottingham Forest and what they've done so far this season, and what you think will happen for the remainder of the season?
I think, first of all, as I said earlier, I think they've appointed a very good manager, and I think that was a very important step for them. They almost got over the line last season. What I will say is, having sat through a number of these seasons where you almost get over the line, those last 5 or 6 games are absolutely crucial, because everything can happen in those matches, and nerves can take hold, and tension and confidence can quickly pick up or disappear. I think they've signed a lot of players. I think the task for Chris Hughton will be to sift through those players and find the team or teams that he wants to put out there. Sometimes you can have too many players to pick from, because it gives you too many options, especially if you lose a game. You can turn around and look behind you and there's probably 12 players sat in the stand, and you think, well, do I make a number of changes? So he has to cope with that. They've got some good players. I don't think there's any doubt about that. But like Derby at the moment, they're scratching about for points, and I think with both teams, I think once they can pick up a few results, I think you'll see different teams. I think you'll see more confident sides. I think you'll see more fluent sides. I notice with Derby at times when things are going well, they do things without thinking. And that you make a pass without thinking, even a simple 10-yard pass. But when things aren't going well, you think about it. You maybe take a touch before you make the pass. You maybe have a second touch before you try and get the shot away. That's what might be happening to Grabham at times as well up front. When he's on song, he probably doesn't even think about how he finishes. He just does it instinctively, and that's confidence, and that's belief. And I think with Forest, I say, there's no doubt they've got good players. I watched the game on TV against Huddersfield when they lost, and they've got good players in there. They just need to settle as quickly as possible, and that's the challenge for Chris Hughton.
Same question for you, Sarah.
Yeah, I mean, similar really. Derby are undoubtedly a better side than what the results and the position in the table is at the minute. They've got good players. They've got a good manager. It's getting it to happen on the pitch, isn't it? And getting the results and getting the performances going again. And it is about confidence. That makes such a huge difference for anybody. I'm sure once Derby get a couple of results under their belt and get going, then suddenly that comes flooding back. And it's the same with Forest. As soon as you get a good result and put in a decent performance, you're looking at the next games completely differently and thinking, yeah, we could get something from that, or yeah, we can look at that one and hope to win that one. Whereas before, you're looking at it and thinking, I don't know when our next result's going to come from. I hope it doesn't come for Derby on Friday, obviously, but it's difficult when obviously we've been in a similar position with Sabri Lamouchi when results weren't happening for him, and there was pressure on him to turn it around, and obviously Forest then make that call and change the manager, and it's interesting to see when or if Derby do the same. We all know that these big East Midlands Derby games, they often have a certain effect on managers and their positions. We've been there before. It's going to be a really interesting game, I think. Forest will not be underestimating Derby at all. They won't be looking at their results and thinking, well, this one's going to be easy. This is going to be a walkover, because Derby games aren't like that. Regardless of what form either team are in, there's always so much drama or something that happens. Forest will want the win, absolutely. They'll be going out there to get the 3 points, I've no doubt about that. But I don't think they'll be looking at it as an easy game. I think that they'll know that they're going to be in for a difficult test, regardless of the results that Derby have had recently.
Just going back to our last question, Chris says, wrong one. Surely they don't need fans to be up for the game, for a Derby game. Do you think that this game is a bit of a yardstick for how far both sides have come so far this season, that this could be a little bit of a turning point if you get the result?
I don't think. I don't think it's a case of not being up for the game. The players will be up for the game, but it's just a different feel. You cannot replicate standing in a tunnel before a game at 5-3 with the noise of 28,000 fans screaming and waiting for you to walk out, and that noise when you walk out, that suddenly lifts you massively, I would imagine, for those who are lucky enough to have done that.
I was about to say, have you done that, Steve?
Well, I tell you what's interesting. Even at any level you've played at, and even if you've played in front of a few hundred or a few thousand, which has happened, even that lifts you if someone's there watching. So imagine what 28,000 is like watching. So it's not a case of not being up for it. They'll be up for it, no doubt about that. Professional footballers, they want to go out and beat their opponent. That's what happens in professional sport. But it's just that extra spice that the crowd adds. And not only that, it's not only before the game, it's during the game. As Sarah said, I think there's games last season when Forest probably would have picked up an extra point here and there, which would have made all the difference between them getting in the playoffs or not, had they been backed or heard that support. When you're under pressure, last 5 minutes, and you may be hanging on, to have that backing when you make that clearance or you make that tackle or you whack the ball down the pitch in the corner flag, it's that backing that gives you that extra energy when you're feeling absolutely shattered. So that's what it's all about, really.
Yeah, not to bring up bad memories, Sarah, but the way you dropped out of the playoffs on the last day, there's no way.
Oh, thanks, Dan. Just about got over that Stoke game, but thanks.
Do you know what I mean, though?
It wouldn't happen.
It's fairy tale, wasn't it? Well, the opposite of a fairy tale, but you couldn't write something like that happening. The opposite was fairy tale.
I tell you what was interesting. I was sat at St Andrews that night at Derby. We were playing Birmingham, and in the final 10 minutes, I think there was more interest in the Forest scores dropping in than there was in what was happening on the pitch. That's probably why I wrote such a poor match report.
It's not like you to rub it in, Steve. We'll end with predictions then from the two of you, and I might give one as well, even though I'm not really basing it on anything. But we'll
you go first, Dan.
You want me to start? Okay.
Yeah, you go first.
I'll be boring and say it's going to be a draw and stick on the fence, not to upset either of you. I think probably you'll end up both cancelling each other out a little bit. You'll both, you're missing Rooney, you're missing Grabban. Not missing Grabban, but not a confident Grabban.
Missing his goals, yeah.
Yeah, missing his goals. New manager for you. Cockerill's in a bit of a rut, so cancel each other out. 1-1, I'll go for.
I think again, it's not sitting on the fence, but the safe bet to me looks a 1-1 draw. As it always does in these games, and I wouldn't be surprised by that. But we won't sit on the fence like you, Dan. So Derby need a win. They won at Norwich playing a certain way. They were hard to beat. I think Waghorn hopefully will be back as a starter. Lawrence will have another game under his belt. Jozwiak will also have another game under his belt. I'm going to go for a narrow Derby 2-1, I think. 2-0 or 2-1.
Okay, Sarah, what about you?
I don't think it'll be an easy game by any means, but I think Forest, they just go into it with that little bit more positivity, I think, and I'm sure that'll make a huge difference for them. I think Grabban will actually come good and prove his critics wrong and hopefully find the back of the net and stop all the flack that's been coming his way. That would be nice. I think Forest can edge it if they play like they know they can, and if they cut out any mistakes at the. I know that sounds easy, but cut out any mistakes at the back. I think they could get a decent one under Chris Hughton. I'll go 2-0 and Lewis Grabban and Lyle Taylor to get one each.
I like how as the neutral I went for a draw, and you two with your bias both went for your teams to win. That's what I wanted, really. That'll make a good clip. Just a few comments coming in from the fans watching. I don't know whether, like I said, who's who here. So the first two were Forest 4-0 and Forest 3-0. I don't know whether that's negative Derby fans or overly positive Forest fans.
I hope it's not that score 3 or 4-0 because that won't go down very well at all.
There's a lot of Forest support. So like I said, I don't know who's an 8-0 Forest here. I don't know whether
that's
a negative Derby fan or there's a lot of love for Forest. There's a Forest fan with the Forest badge. I suppose my final question then for you both to wrap up. Is how will the fans be feeling? How do you judge the mood in the camp? Is it one where you're both thinking, this could, maybe not so much for Forest now you've changed manager, but before this you'd be thinking, oh God, Derby might do us here, or it's going to be a draw? Are you both maybe a little bit not that confident?
I think it's difficult to judge the mood, I think, at the minute, because Forest have started picking results up and because Derby haven't. I think fans maybe get a little bit nervous and think, that it could
They're
easily
going to win
change.
at some point.
Exactly, it can easily go the other way. And equally, I think we were saying before that Forest have got a pretty decent record in recent years against Derby, and those kind of runs always make you nervous as well, because you think, well, that's going to change at some point, or it's got to change at some point. But the fact they've got 2 results under their belt, I think that's just, it's lifted the mood a little bit at Forest. And we've seen some of the score predictions. I think perhaps it's given people a bit more confidence and a bit more hope and optimism going into Friday night than they would have had previously.
I think, again, when results aren't going well, of course, there's going to be a lot of pessimism about that. That's understandable. That's just the way football is. I think sometimes that pessimism is there as almost as a safety net for fans to kind of say, "Oh, I told you so," when actually they're hoping for very much different outcome. And I just think Derby, the fans will say you can't hide the disappointment and the frustration, all that. That's obvious. You lose 5 of 6 league games, that's going to be the same at any club, and that's the kind of general feeling around the place. But as I said before, that quickly changes. That quickly changes. It happened at Norwich. Derby had lost 4-0 a previous league game at home to Blackburn. It could have been 10. They were that bad, Derby, and went to Norwich, and everyone was fearing the worst. Oh, it's Norwich City, just been relegated from the Premier League, Carrow Road away. And Derby went there and won 1-0, and suddenly people are jumping through hoops, and we're all happy. And suddenly the A4 team back from East Anglia doesn't look that bad. And it's just a case of the result support at the moment. So there'll be pessimism about, but believe you me, underneath that there'll be a lot of fans saying, "Hey, let's hope this could be the game. This could be the one that turns around our season," and that can happen.
Well, we'll end our pre-match Derby chat with another cliche, because we've pretty much used every other one so far. Yeah. That anything can happen in football, as we all know. So, I think we've ticked off every other cliche going in this episode. So why not end on that? It's been good to chat to you both. I've really enjoyed previewing the game with you both. I hope you two feel the same.
Yeah, thanks, Dan. Thanks, Steve.
We'll try and catch up possibly after the game, but it is a night game on a Friday, so I'm not sure whether any of us fancy that. Depends what the result is, I guess. But if not, we'll be back with the Garibaldi Red podcast next week, and we'll catch up on Facebook with yourself, Steve, at some point. Mm-hmm. Thanks everyone for tuning in. Thanks for asking your questions. We really appreciate it. Thanks both for your time, and may the best team win or draw.
Thank you for listening to Garibaldi Red, a Nottingham Forest podcast. If you enjoyed today's episode, then please let us know. We love hearing your feedback. We'll be back soon with another episode. Thanks for listening.